Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil right.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Riff Worship. I'm one of the hosts, Justin Swindle, joined by Austin Paulson and not Dylan Adams.
Never.
We finally put him to rest, folks.
R.I.P. The Baldini. No, he couldn't make it with us this week. We will certainly miss him, but we'll just try to, you and me, alone.
Yeah.
Together.
This will be great. The lifeblood of this group is gone.
The banter,
left with you and the least talking one of the three of us.
Prepare for just a gut busting episode full of quips, full of bits. Get ready, strap in, because this is a high octane comedy podcast.
Swindle, what did you think of this song? Instruments. Yep.
Riff.
How have you been?
I've been all right. By the time this comes out, we would have seen each other, so that was fun. That was a good time.
Definitely in the past, it was a good time. I had a real good time doing
movies and getting hammered.
Yeah, that was fun.
And remember when we ate at
Thai Express?
Also
always
good.
Also always delicious.
This is so stupid. This is a fun record. I definitely got in this record because of you, so I'm glad we get to talk about it today.
Yeah, we are going to talk about Petitioning the Empty Sky by Converge. To be completely transparent, this is not my favorite Converge record. This is probably like my fourth or fifth favorite Converge record, but saying this is my fourth or fifth favorite Converge record is kind of like saying chocolate is my like fourth favorite ice cream flavor. Like It's still fucking delicious. It's right. Ice cream. Like it's still a great Converge record because it's Converge. But you got to start somewhere, and I'm sure we will get to talking about other Converge records at some point in this podcast.
100%. Got to kick it off at some place, and I'll just right off the bat, this is probably my introduction to the band, and I think you have this on CD, right? Yeah. So I think you like definitely gave it to me to like download on my computer or something like that at one point. And like many of the things that you introduced to me, like I'd never fucking heard anything like this. It's a weird record. This band has a lot of like, diverse influences, I would say. But it's not conventional by any means. So, for a guy who like grew up listening to just kind of like old school thrash metal and, very early hardcore, this was like, what the fuck? I have no idea what's going on here. But I will say the way you kind of described it, you would be like, or at least the way I remember it was like skronky Slayer riffs. Like Slayer riffs were certainly used in some capacity. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say if there were a first Converge album to listen to for you, knowing like your love of thrash metal, this would have been the album to. So yeah, I guess I was smart. I was smart back then, smarter than I thought.
How did you get into this record? I am curious. Is it still that blog going strong?
No. I got into Converge. The first Converge album I listened to was Jane Doe. Wyatt lent me Jane Doe, and I burned it to my computer, and it was like very early into my like foray into underground heavy music, and fucking Concubine just hearing Concubine right out of the gate is just insane. That, like, the first song on Jane Doe is just chaos and noise, and like I don't think I accepted it like then, but after some listens I was like this has changed the way I've will listen to music from now on. And then that was probably like 2006, maybe close to around the time that No Heroes came out. But I just kind of like got into all their shit after I listened to Jane Doe.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to dive into. And, it kind of came full circle, like maybe a handful of years ago. Like, we actually got to see Converge together. That was the first time maybe the only time I'd seen them at this point. You've seen them a few times, right?
I've seen them twice. I saw them once with Dylan in like 2009 or 2010. And I saw him with you, and yeah.
That was like just such a wide spectrum of like a lot of our shared interests there with, Converge, Thou. Yeah, we Uniform, Full of Hell, one of my favorite bands. So, and I think that's also kind of just a testament to Converge in general, is they are just kind of these older stalwarts of like underground music. They have been for, I gotta say stalwart because Dylan's not here, I guess. But just championing underground music, whether through the bands they tour with or like the label that they run, Death Wish, or like Jake being like half operating founder of that label, God City, Kurt recording all of the bands and kind of shaping extreme music for the past like 20 fucking years is pretty crazy. So I don't want to like just kiss this band's ass incessantly, but I will, because I do believe, anyone could make the argument that this is probably one of the most important bands of like, this type of music. Maybe, they have such an imprint on music history in general to me. Like, that was my interpretation of them, and kind of like understanding where they come from and what they've been able to do just through this band as like a vehicle. So definitely cool that we get to start out with this record for sure.
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning. Converge started around 1990. I think Jake said that like him and Jeff Feinberg got together and kind of like had mutual admiration for a lot of like kind of traditional metal bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and stuff like that. So Jeff Feinberg and Jake Bannon started Converge. They were joined by Damon Bellarado on drums. And they kind of started playing Black Flag and Suicidal Tendency covers, which I'm sure a lot of bands at that time did start exactly that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just even kind of looking ahead to this record, not to like get too far ahead of ourselves, but I don't think we're gonna touch on it too much. But there are some covers versions of songs that like this band has done that kind of showcases their love of like maybe like older forms of like heavy music. So that's right. Kind of makes sense that they start out that way.
And when they started, Jake was actually on bass, and Jeff Feinberg was the only guitar player. Shortly after they started, Kurt Ballou, who I think was in school with them, just like a year older than those three guys, they got him to join on guitar. Jake then moved to vocals, and Jeff Feinberg moved to bass. They said like Jake was more advanced than the rest of them on their instruments not Jake. They said Kurt was more advanced than the rest of them on their instruments because he could actually play like scales.
Yeah.
He was they said that at the time he was a year older than them, which essentially meant that he was walking with like a cane just being 1 year older than them, which I identify with because that's exactly how y'all treat me.
You killed Dylan off so you wouldn't have to hear it anymore.
And then after Kurt joined the band, that's when they finally decided on the name Converge, because they wanted to go by the name Undertow, but they found out that was taken by a similar band.
Yeah, I'd heard of this band way later in life. It's like a straight edge kind of hardcore band from Seattle. Haven't delved too much into it, but I think they definitely come from that world, and I think you can hear it on this record too. For sure.
These Arms Are Snakes guys talked a lot about Undertow and the interviews that I read for that episode, but that makes sense because they're all from Seattle.
Right.
And shortly after they changed the name of their band, they recorded a demo song called Gravel. And I think it wasn't even at a Converge show, but Kurt was just at a show in Boston selling their demo and met two people that, like, it was a very important meeting because he met Aaron Dalbeck, who would later join the band. And he also met Trey McCarthy, who would go on to start Death Wish Records with Jake.
Perfect.
So an important meeting, important show to be at.
Hey, this will affect the the rest of my days pretty much. Like, this is so cool. That's awesome.
It's kind of a little bit off topic, but it reminds me, there's I read the Beastie Boys book, and they went to a Bad Brain show in New York City, which is like, that one show is like how Henry Rollins got to be in Black Flag, and that's also like the show that made the two people in Sonic Youth want to start the band, and it's also like when the three Beastie Boys met each other for the first time.
That's so weird. It's
just a wild, weird show.
Fuck yeah.
So Kurt met Aaron and he joined the band eventually. In 1994, they released their first real release called Halo in a Haystack. It came out on Earthmaker Records, which was at the time Jacob Bannon's label. An important thing came out of that release. It seems like it was the only release that Jake let someone else handle the cover. He had a collection of photographs, but he let someone else arrange them and make the art for the album, and he wasn't really happy with how it turned out. So from Halo in a Haystack, he decided that he was going to handle the art for the band's remainder of their releases, which is, I think, he's still doing that to this day.
Yeah. While I the style maybe has changed, progressed certainly since these days, where I feel like maybe these are just very interesting paintings, perhaps, very kind of, and then maybe I don't know if it would be accurate to say Jane Doe era, where it's more collage type stuff.
This cover that Jake did and the When Forever Comes Crashing, they always kind of remind me of street art, spray painting, tagging kind of stuff.
Definitely.
I guess the thickness of the lines, and maybe there's some dripping that kind of lends itself to look like spray painting.
It does feel very textured. You could almost just get some shit on your hand if you were to touch it or something like that. But it is cool. I do enjoy his work, and Aaron Turner's work as well. I think they have created some cool visuals for this band and some other projects and stuff as well.
Yeah, but surprisingly, they thought they were going to break up. When after Halo in a Haystack came out, Jake and Kurt went to two separate colleges in Boston, which doesn't seem like that's that wild. But also, Jeff Feinberg started college in Montreal.
Oh, shit.
Which is a bit away. So they thought they were going to have to call it quits. They went I guess long periods of time without practicing, and them quitting would have changed hardcore forever.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
We wouldn't even got the album we're going to start talking about soon.
Damn, fucking college, man.
College sucks. Drop out.
Spend your money on on shitty instruments and.
In 1995, Lost and Found Records took some of the songs from Halo in the Haystack, some unreleased tracks, some songs from compilations, and made Caring and Killing in 1995. Eventually, that would get re-released by Hydra Head Records in 1997. Kurt Ballou said about Lost and Found Records, he said, like every other band Lost and Found worked with, they screwed us over. So I guess that has something to do with them moving to Hydra Head Records in 1997. But it's interesting that they only waited 2 years to re-release Caring and Killing. Like, it doesn't seem like that long, but I guess...
I don't know. I mean, I also kind of have that question about this record because it's like there's like a record label that Petitioning gets released on, and then like 2 years later it gets reissued on a different label. So it was like, oh, that's interesting. Who knows? Just better people to work with. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't.
I'm talking to the audience. Do you know?
Email us at
Can you find the record label? I don't know
why. So that leads us to this record, to Petitioning the Empty Sky, which initially was released in 1996, but was initially released as a 4-song EP, which I was unaware.
Yeah. I have always thought of this as like the CD you gave me, just like all the songs, but it definitely makes sense that all the songs did not appear on the original release because tonally one half of the record, it sounds like vastly different than the first half.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a 7-inch EP, 96, you got, 4 songs that are a fucking whirlwind. I mean, on the CD version, however, there's 10 songs.
Yeah.
And then I think up until maybe like the 2000s, then maybe some of those live tracks get added a little bit more. But for the most part, I guess we're kind of looking at 10 tracks. Is that how we're doing this today? Okay. This was very confusing because like you said, I don't think either of us really knew that. And then when you're like looking through some of the different track listing on like various sites like Discogs and shit, I'm like, wait, what? And then like also the order's not the same depending on which one you look at. It's very fucking confusing. But so it's not really like sophomore record, not really. I don't know like where this kind of lines up in, but we're talking about it today. Ferret Records is like the original home, right? So I recognize this label because I think we talked about it in our Kill Switch episode, because I think they released their first like debut self-titled record in 2000, and this is by Carl Severson. He's the vocalist of a band called Nora, and he like ran this label in New Jersey. And then some people might know him from, I guess, his current like kind of label or like vast entertainment kind of hub called Good Fight. I've seen a few releases on that. I'm not like super familiar. There might be some stuff that I'm forgetting, but definitely kind of still in the like metalcore, like hardcore world. So you might have listened to something on that label, but Ferret Records, also the home of Converge.
Yeah, for the very, very beginning.
Yes.
So they released the original EP, the first 4 tracks with Ferret Records, and then Ferret Records released just a little while later, released a CD version with tracks 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
And then when they re-released this record, they added the live tracks that were recorded for WJUL in August of 1995. The first 5 tracks they recorded at Salad Days in October of 95. 6, 7, and 8 they recorded with Mike West at West Sound in February of 96.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like I said, it sounds different. It's because they're recorded in literally 2 different places at different times. You know, Brian McTernan, I believe, was a vocalist of Battery, Ashes, Be Well. He did the first few. And then there's like the live tracks that you mentioned on some of the releases that were like, it's like a commercial or a non-commercial college radio station in like Lowell, like University of Massachusetts Lowell. So yeah, it's like, it's a fun record, but yeah, there's like a point where you'll definitely notice where it's like, okay, I can hear it. Like there's something about the guitars, there's something, even something about the way some of the songs are structured. I'm like, okay, this is like a little different than what I heard earlier, but it's still there. The artwork is great, like we mentioned. I think, was it Jake did the original artwork?
Yeah.
And then Aaron did the artwork that I have often associated with the record as well. I like both. I just think, like, I always think of that like weird horn demon thing on the front.
Yeah. Jake, talking about the first 5 tracks on this, said that this was like the first time he was actually happy with how his voice came out in a recording. He said that this was the first time that all the weird, like, hectic and unhinged sounds, all the wild sounds he could hear in his head, it was the first time he could actually make them sound like he wanted to on recording.
Yeah. Those first 5 tracks are fucking awesome. They're great. So cool. But one thing I will say too about his vocals, and I'm sure we'll get into it a lot, is that, you know, again, he's like trying a lot of different things on this record. Like, it's not all just screaming at the top of his lungs. Like, he likes to bring it down a little bit in a very weird kind of dazed delivery. But right, we'll get into some of that for sure.
Well, we can get into the track listing for this. This album gets into it. It opens really fucking quick and very dissonant.
I do like that you mentioned Jane Doe and like that, the opening of that record. I think this opening as well is like pretty iconic for me. Yeah. Just like the, again, scrunky kind of chords, I guess you could call it.
Chord right off the rip. Yeah.
Man.
Your boys in Hardlore said that this was one of the best opening tracks in hardcore history, right?
I believe so, yeah. Which, you know, I can't blame him for picking it, because it just like is kind of seared in your brain like after you've heard it. And again, I had never heard anything like this, but it's super fucking chaotic. Like you said, gets right into it. It has that kind of weird chaos and dissonance to it, but then also, I mean, it has like Slayer riffs from like all sorts of different eras, whether you're like Rain and Blood, Seasons in the Abyss, like there's like definitely some weird, like even Kerry King kind of dive bomb parts in this song, or like the guitar harmonies are like all there. So there's definitely that influence, but they've done it in such a unique, way that like, okay, I know you listen to this, but the way you're just not ripping it off. Like anyone can rip that off, but they've done it in a way that feels like uniquely theirs.
They also do a really good job of, although the song is very chaotic, they do bring back parts, and a lot of the guitar parts seem like they are like kind of building off of other parts from this song.
Yeah.
This is a hardcore epic, though. This is a fucking 8-minute song. They said they weren't sure how hardcore fans were going to take the song because it was so long.
It's definitely a bold move as your opening track, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's such a journey from like start to finish, because it feels like it meanders, like the way he plays guitar feels like it's kind of like wow, where the fuck are we going? But yeah, the way it transitions into like, you know, that beginning where there is just so much going on, but then there's like, you know, like a minute 25 they put in a breakdown part, or like, you know, there's the like
Inspector Gadget riff.
Oh god, that's so funny. God, it's like here's a Slayer solo, and then yeah, here's like this fucking doop boop 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 boop. God, amazing.
Yeah. Also the fucking chant is iconic.
Towards the end.
Yeah, every time you justify, another good in you dies. I'm sure 19-year-olds in 1996 were like jumping all over each other to get that microphone. and we know for a fact from a video that you have off reposted that the drummer will just leave the drum set and jump all over everyone in the middle of the song also.
Fuck him. Fuck him, that's why. Yeah, it's a great track. I like that you kind of have like variations in riffs and songs, or in like the songwriting structure, and then even like I mentioned before, like his vocal delivery changes at one point. There's a lot of these like, at some points there's like these kind of sparse breaks, I guess, where it's like cleaner guitars and like maybe like cymbal kind of little hits. And then he has this like very dazed kind of strained like vocal, like almost like whisper kind of thing that he does that is just very off-putting and weird, but it fits. Like
it's also kind of like singy, but not definitely not in key, if there is a key. Also the bass line coming out of that part is a wonderful bass line.
Yeah, definitely.
Jeff was a good bassist. I know, like after this album he would quit the band, and personally I don't honestly know if he went to do any other music, but he was talented. He was a good bass player.
Right. Forsaken?
Slayer riff right off the rip in Forsaken.
100%. Like they double bass and then that galloping Slayer riff for sure. Those like galloping chugs. You know, I think this song you kind of get a feel for like where the mix is at as well, with these like first 5 tracks at least for sure, where it's like guitars up front. You know, you get vocals, but like they're I wouldn't say they're necessarily the focal point, although they're there. It just feels like it's kind of like right under it. So it's like another instrument like that we often mention with other records for sure. Right.
Like I'm not necessarily a vocal person, like a lyrics person most of the time, which is why I'm in a show that talks about the riffs. I hardly know any Converge lyrics, and I listen to Converge like a lot, like still very frequently, and I know very few of the lyrics. I always think that Jake's, like you said, his voice is like another part of the music. It's just another instrument, like you said.
Right. Yeah, it fits. Everything fits. Like to touch on guitars, you know, like I said, very upfront. I do like that there is this. You kind of get the best of like both worlds with this band, or like for sure this record, where it goes from the, you know, just wild, fucking all over the place kind of guitar playing, which like I feel like I say this and I feel like you certainly have to be focused to play stuff like that, but the way it sounds, you know, versus some of the other riffs you get where, all right, here's like all of the shit that's bouncing off the wall, and then here's like the more like straightforward pummeling kind of riff that it's all there. You get like everything that you would kind of want from something like this.
There are a lot of harmonics on this album, a lot of guitar harmonics.
Yes,
they use that a lot.
Yes. Definitely. It's which is cool. Like it's very Yeah, it's musical. It's great. It's
noisy.
Very noisy record. Lots of feedback. Lots of just amps being pushed. It's a loud fucking record for sure.
Yeah.
Which is definitely unsurprising, this band being loud. But it's cool. I love this. I especially love the kind of it's like the slowed down part at the end where it kind of the Slayer harmonies come in, but it's like you're slowing down and then you end on this like insane breakdown. And you get those guitar harmonics like you mentioned is really fucking cool. And along with those screams as well, I should mention like the way they play off each other, really, really cool.
Yeah. And then we move into Albatross, and it starts with your grandparents' alarm clock is what.
I love this song. I think this is like kind of the first instance we get of like kind of a shift in like the type of song that like we have, like where we had like the Slayer riffs that we would mention to death, but this one feels like it opens kind of like a Youth of Today track to me. Like it feels like kind of like more of a classic hardcore song. Yeah.
I did note that at the end of Albatross, it's like actually straightforward.
Yeah.
And like very soft kind of. And it's like for this point of the album, like, and I guess like that's the only time in the original release of this album that you're going to hear something like that.
Yeah.
The re-releases, you will get more of the soft parts, but for this point of this album so far, it's like the only kind of moment that you have to catch your breath.
Cause I agree, because then you go into something like Dead, and it opens really weird. It's a great. You get like the bass is audible, and then you get like Jake kind of breathing into the mic or something like that to start it off. But I love this riff in particular. It's very like noodly and full of harmonics. It's like that part, like the noodling part, and then you also get like maybe towards the back half of the song, it's like very pummeling and just kind of a driving like there's like it like shifts into like a two-step part and a gallop almost or something like that. Yeah.
I wrote that this song kind of reminded me more of like a DC emo core kind of like with the like driving octave chords. The beginning of it reminded me of like kind of an emo core vibe more so than like the Slayer-y stuff that's at the beginning of the record. But I also really like the like kind of 2-note riff, the like with the hits, and you can hear the drum, you can hear like the ring of the ride cymbal ringing out, which like this, no other spot of this album do you have like the space to hear a cymbal ringing out. It's just a complete wall of noise for the rest of the album up to this point. So I really like that, just like that feel of the song. And then like the end when it gets like super like grindy almost, like super duper fast, like you were saying.
Just fuck it, like we're going for it. 100%. And you think it would like end there, but then you get into another signature track from this band and record.
Before we move on, Dead was actually the first release of that song was on Carrying and Killing.
Oh shit, okay.
And they re-recorded it for the EP, I think.
That's rad. Gotcha. Okay. So again, you're pulling from like various periods of the band, I guess, and different timelines. Maybe
this is why like Dylan would always talk about how confusing Thou was, and maybe this is like Converge is why I'm not that confused by Thou, because like Converge has like the same songs on like 3 different albums at this point of the band, and I'm just like, sure, well,
which Smoke Pigs are you talking about? Gotta know, like figure it out. You think it would end there, and you get into like this other signature song from this band and record, in my opinion, Shingles. With that fucking noodle tapping hammer on pull off riff that goes on for like a minute fucking straight. My fingers were getting tired. I wasn't even like playing guitar. Like fucking hell.
And then it comes back. Like,
yes,
it goes. It kind of goes away, but it never really goes away. And the song just kind of descends into like that riff, and variations of that riff happen so much of this song that by the end of this song, you're like fucking pulling your hair out. And the song sounds like it is essentially pulling its hair out also.
Definitely.
Just complete chaos.
Yeah. Mental breakdown type music for sure. Like, here is the soundtrack to it. But it also, it has that. It has like that noodle kind of like little hammer on and pull off thing. But then you have like just some catchy ass fucking riffs in this song as well. You get some more of those like sparse kind of breaks with the guitar. There's one part of this, I think it's during the break, where this part you should definitely, if you're not listening with headphones, definitely listen to this with headphones, because the left and right, again, kind of like your brain's melting, where it's like left, right. They're just kind of playing off of one another with the vocals kind of mixed underneath. But yeah, this is such a fun song in general. Yeah,
there is one of the few lyric lines I know from this album, very bleak, gun in my mouth, I pray for the sunshine. He like repeats that over and over again at the end of the song.
Jeez.
I don't think old Jacob was very happy at the time.
For this music? No, I don't know. You sure? So then, as we've mentioned, like parts of this record recorded at different times. That's the end of the original kind of 7-inch. You get into track 6. And there's definitely a noticeable shift in tone. Like we mentioned, it was recorded by something else at a different studio. But Buried But Breathing, I would say, is kind of similar to a song like Albatross, where it's just kind of like very fast, kind of like more old school hardcore vibe to me.
Very, very straightforward song.
Yes.
The guitar riff is just like 3 or 4 chords, which for Converge, like, wild.
They did it. They did it so as a challenge to themselves. Can we just write straightforward structures?
Yeah, the riff is like kind of deceivingly long. Like, I think it only repeats twice, maybe fully. The first riff. Also that Buried But Breathing like chant at the end. I'm sure kids were also piling on each other for that chant at the end of the song when they played it.
It's like a minute long song,
right?
Like it just cooks right through. And I would say that, just as we kind of touch on like the different parts of this record, I would say that, like, personally, my favorite, I feel like the front half of this record is very, like, the front half of this record is probably my favorite. And like, I don't necessarily hate the sound of this part, but it was like such a noticeable difference that, like, I get it. It's like more or less like a compilation, and that kind of makes sense when you think about it that way. But, if you're trying to enjoy it as like one piece, it might be a little difficult, because it is just kind of like a jarring, like, oh, that's interesting that the guitars sound like that, or like, what are they fucking using? Like, that's interesting. Yeah. But they're great songs nonetheless. I mean, the next one alone, Farewell Note to the City, reminds me of like a Fugazi kind of opening with those, like, again, those harmonics. And, even like the way the bass and the drums are being played, it definitely kind of reminds me of some DC shit.
Yeah. I also wrote that this song reminds me of like emo core Revolution Summer DC shit from like 86 or Fugazi, like early 90s. This is Farewell Note to the City is, I think it's probably my favorite song on the album. If it's not The Saddest Day, it's Farewell Note to the City. This is another track where like Jake is really doing weird shit with the vocals. Like during the verses, like he's essentially just whispering, and the rhythm is very kind of like off kilter. It's not a steady rhythm for his vocals. And then like when you get into the choruses, he's like wailing kind of.
Yeah. It's not a scream like you would have heard on like some of the previous songs. I would say it's like more of like a traditional. He's like wailing or like singing it more or less. Like it feels like a more of like a traditional. I don't know. I don't know what kind of song you would call it, but it feels more straightforward in that regard. And then even the way it's structured musically also feels very like, this seems like more or less like this most straightforward song on the record.
Yeah. I mean, this is like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus in the song. Like it is pop song structure, like 101 essentially. Yeah. But that bridge part where they like kick it back up, like back into Converge, speed. That's a good part of the song. The bass really carries the song a lot because a lot of the guitar of the verses especially is just like kind of textural. There's no riffs.
Yeah, I like that fast part is really fun, and it's like that fast hardcore kind of thing, but then it also has like room for like these like melodic little runs and even like pick scrapes and all sorts of shit too that are really great. Good song for sure.
That leads us into Color Me Blood Red, which is a very stark tonal shift in songs. It starts with like Slayer riffs.
Yep.
Again, Jake is still whispering at the very beginning of this song, but it's loud, it's fast. It definitely sounds like this era of Converge for sure.
Yeah, lots of like galloping riffs. I love those like pounding kind of drums throughout the song.
The like I love the chromatic like rundown that they're doing. Yeah, and the like drum fill that happens in the song.
That's so funny. Yeah, that little like very that was like I chuckled because I wasn't expecting it, where it just kind of everything breaks out and there's like literally everything else is gone, and then it's just like like some fucking Hawaii 5-0 type shit or something like that.
It kind of sounds like it almost sounds like an 80s song where they're using like very very obviously programmed drums. It sounds like that,
right? 100%. There's some there was like I really like the riff at like a minute or so, like chugging and grooving kind of riff. I would say this song matches maybe like what we heard earlier, like you mentioned. Although there is one riff, and I would be interested to see if you like took a note of this. About 3 minutes in, did it remind you of anything in particular?
Are you talking about the chug riff?
It's like maybe what is it's reminded me of Revolution Is My Name.
Oh. Well, that would have been before Pantera ripped off Converge.
Yeah, wow. Fuckers. God, those guys. Yeah, you're right.
There are also pinch harmonics in that part.
Yep.
Yeah.
It felt like the same thing, but now you're right. Pantera ripped off Converge. You've heard it here first.
Wow. Tell your friends.
Tell everyone on the street. Dear boy, what day is it? Sorry.
Here's the paper, mister.
By the plumpest cooked goose in the I told you, quips. We're all about quips now Dylan's gone.
Dimebag Darrell ain't gonna know what hit him after this episode.
Fuck.
Anyway. And that concludes this show. that kind of concludes the like not original but second original release of this album. And then we get into three live tracks that were released, I think, in the first
Equal Vision
release of this
yeah.
album in 1998. Maybe they released it when Forever Comes Crashing came out, because that came out in 98.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I do like, there's one on the CD version of this, the Ferret Records CD version, rather. Home Song is like 17 minutes long. And there is so like it ends at 6:52. After 5 minutes of silence, there is an unlisted cover of Twisted Sister's Burn in Hell, which is hilarious. I always remember that from fucking Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where Dee Snider's on the hood of that car. But yeah, that was wild. I was like, oh, these guys, they know what they fucking love all of this shit. And it's so funny. Yeah, they're fine. They didn't really like necessarily blow me away. I'm not like a huge I like going to shows a lot.
Right.
Like, it's one of my favorite things to do. I'm not necessarily like a live song kind of guy, I guess, but
yeah,
they're fun. It's cool that they have that recorded. Like, hey, we recorded this shit like at a local radio station, like a college radio station.
You could tell that they it was live and it sounds live, but it obviously was not at a show, because you could tell that they were actually trying to like play the songs right and well and seem professional, as opposed to like I said, the video that you've reposted on Instagram a bunch, where like the drummer comes over the drum set and dives in the middle of the song, he dives into the attending like audience.
Amazing.
Which is great. I'm not
I'm the drummer.
And they have to wait for him to get back. Like the people are like crowd surfing him back, and like Kurt, Aaron, and Jake are just like, well, I do love in Home Song where they like Kurt, I assume it's Kurt, breaks a string in the middle. They have to like stop in the middle of it. And Jake had smashed himself with a like microphone stand or something, and he's like, I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding like a sea. And you can hear somebody, I don't know who else it is in the background, but someone yells, tell a wrestling story. I don't know what that is.
Well, he did, wasn't there a video of him? I think he like definitely digs it, because there's like a video of him at a wrestling event, like right up front or something like that. I'll find it, but
hell yeah. Was it Jake?
I think so. I think it was Jake. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that is the end of the original Equal Vision Records version of the album. But even in 2004, when they re-released the album, Equal Vision put another new song on it, a different version of a song called Love as Arson, which was on Forever Comes Crashing. That version of Love as Arson has Stephen Brodsky from Cave-In on bass.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Of so many bands. Fucking Cave-In, Mutoid Man, fucking Old Man Gloom. That man writes riffs.
Yeah. At that point, when Steven joins the band, like Converge is almost like a hardcore all-star band. Like they have members of fucking Bane, Converge, and Cave-In all on the same like thing.
Yeah. Wild. And then they were all, if I'm not mistaken, like Equal Vision, I think, and I had no idea, like started by Ray Capo, and then like he sold it to someone else that kind of like, I think Equal Vision started as a label for like Ray to like release his own shit maybe, or like kind of like-minded records. But then when he sold it, then it like, you know, like Converge is on it, Bane was on it, other bands like that were like, so like all under this hub. Pretty cool. But yeah, that's rad.
Normally we would like kind of talk about the rest of the band's history, but like we said at the beginning, we're probably going to talk about Converge again. I think Dylan at least has one record that he wants to talk about in some far off distant time. But for the immediate aftermath of this record, I couldn't find much about like touring. I think at the time, because they were like in college, they maybe had, and like Kurt was going to school to be a literal scientist. So I don't think they had really sold themselves on doing this full time. So I think at the time they were just going on like one tour a year, maybe. Jeff Feinberg leaves the band, and like we said, Stephen Brodsky joins the band from Cave In. They're good buddies, so I don't know if his intention was to be a full-time member forever or he was just a fill-in, but just on the way to kind of finalizing this lineup of Converge that we like now know and have known for decades, we get a little stop off. But in 97, they release 3 just small releases, a song called Downpour and a cover on a 5-inch. They release a split with Coalesce called Among the Dead We Pray for Light, and they release a tribute split with Brutal Truth where they cover Black Sabbath's Snowblind.
That's awesome. Great riff, obviously. That was like our first episode, or one of our first episodes of this show. Yeah. I also didn't know about that Serial Killer cover by Violence. I have that record. It's on a record called Eternal Nightmare. That's like some Bay Area thrash shit. So it's like,
that's awesome.
Very, very, very funny to hear that this band had like, they were fans or like they knew about that shit. Like whatever. That's so sick.
It's also funny that they would cover Snowblind because they're all straight edge, and Snowblind, obviously about cocaine.
Yeah. I guess you can't deny a good riff. There are so many like people that I know that are like very staunchly like lifelong edgemen, and they fucking love just, you know, the most depraved like individual. Like those dudes all love like I Hate God and like shit like that, where I'm like, that's amazing. But sometimes you just can't deny a good song or a great band. So
right,
more power to them.
Yeah. So that's all we're gonna cover. That's all we're gonna cover for this band for now. That's all we're gonna cover around this album. I mean, what the fuck can you say about Converge? You know?
Yeah, I mean, they're great. There's a lot to dig into. So much. I mean, you know, I really can't wait to hear what Dylan would love to talk about. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is just one of those bands that over time they just get better and better. You know, and like I mentioned kind of towards the beginning, they've like really expanded their kind of enterprise or like what they are involved with artistically. They're always like supporting younger bands, taking them out on tour. Artists, like if you go to Death Wish, there's like always like prints that you can buy by, you know, I'm sure people that Jake and Trey, they like want to work with. Like we've covered some bands that have been on Death Wish, and again, like I think that's just a testament to like that dude or like these guys in general. Is they just like work with people that they genuinely enjoy and like they, you know, like are into. So yeah, very important band. I definitely, you know, am confident that we will be back at some point talking about Converge. So great start. I'm glad you picked it. I fucking love this record, and I love you.
I love you.
Great. We've reached that point of the episode where we like to share some things we've been listening to, some stuff that we feel like you, the listener, should check out. I am going to recommend this band again. Our last episode where we interviewed Laceration, they had this band had like only released a single, but now they released the full record like on early October. Slow Hole from New Orleans, self-titled record. This is self-released. New Orleans, blackened doom, shoegaze, noise, experimental. I cannot categorize this band to one thing specifically because it is just many things. all at once, all the time. I will say they did do like a tour pressing of this self-titled through Brian Funk of Thou label, Howling Mine. They are on tour with Thou currently, I believe. West Coast dates with Thou. I love this record. However, I will recommend don't listen to it while you're in like standstill traffic with nowhere to go, because you will feel like your skin's like peeling off your skin. I was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta move. I can't just be sitting here with this. It's very intense. It's very visceral. It's very noisy. But it is like such a fun like first release for a band. Very new. I don't really have a whole lot of information on them other than they're from New Orleans and they write cool shit. I definitely would love to hear more. I would love to hear this band live. And if they are involved in any other projects I should be aware of, let me know.
I will never forgive them for using that image from Possession though.
Yeah. There's some, I wonder, I couldn't place it, but I feel like there's some samples on here that I'm sure tie into some of that as well. But yeah, I got to get that. I think they have like a long sleeve too that has that on there. And I'm like, maybe I should just wear this around Swindle.
That was one of the few like scenes in a movie where I have like gagged.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It takes a lot, and
right.
That was one of them. That is an unsettling fucking scene.
It's your lactose though, right? Is that why? Stupid. My second and final recommendation for this episode, Primal Code, Anapsid, which is the first single from their upcoming debut album on Relapse Records, Opaque Fixation. It's going to be dropping November 15th. Features former and current members of bands like Indian, Home Invasion, The Killer, and many, many more. This is like a really fucking cool 3-piece death metal band based out of Chicago. I have been a fan of theirs, like just when I got back into radio, I would play a lot of their shit. They had a really cool split. And EP that I would also recommend checking out. Those are available. But I am very excited for this record and can't wait to hear more. And I hope you listen to it. Swindle, what do you got this week?
I actually have two. One of them is just a single talking about New Orleans bands like Thou. Band that I only checked out because of their recommendation, Paprika. They released a single called Unblinking Eyes. It's going to be off an EP coming up. They just released it at the beginning of October. So check that out. It's like kind of punky shit. I like it. It's fast. Everybody knows that I like simple, fast shit. The other thing that I'm recommending is an older album that I just got into. I messaged y'all the day that I listened to it. Vile Creatures, Glory, Glory, Apathy, Took Helm from 2020. That album is heavy as fuck, and it is wild. It's a wild album.
Great band.
2-piece.
Yeah, that's a great record. I know Dylan's a fan of it as well. So when we were like talking about it, just kind of like, oh yeah, like I gotta check that out again. And then that album cover alone is like also very fucking weird and awesome. Yeah. But
yeah, check that out.
Cool. Yeah, check it all out. Let us know what you think. If you ever want to share tunes with us as well, comment below. You can always reach us at riffworshippod@gmail.com. Follow us at Riff Worship Pod, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for any updates on this show, as well as Dylan's review show, reviews from the Dillbozer's Den. We have playlists for you to check out that are in the descriptions below. Hits from the Crypt, Apple Music, riffs on repeat on Spotify, always updated regularly. So there's like always something new that you can check out. Maybe something you haven't heard before. We have a very special episode next week. I'm not going to tell you now, but definitely keep an eye out for it. It's going to be fun. I'm very excited. But until then, for myself, for Swindle, for Dylan, wherever he may be, you've been listening to Riff Worship. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Gone but not forgotten.